What is the work that you're doing in measuring sentiment? What are some of the new techniques that you're interested in?
Well, first let me say the work I've been doing is joint work with a colleague of mine at the San Francisco Fed, Adam Shapiro, and a computer scientist, Moritz Sudoff, at the company that's been doing the text analysis for us. Basically what we've been doing is an exploratory analysis, trying to see to what extent we can extract the sentiment from news articles and then construct an index that we can use to track the economy over time in much the same way as things like the Consumer Sentiment Index from the University of Michigan or the Consumer Confidence Index from the Conference Board are used.
How well, Dan, do the techniques that you employ match up with existing data on sentiment, the soft data that we talk about, the surveys?
Well, the news sentiment that we are trying to measure is a somewhat different concept than the consumer sentiment indexes and the existing standard sentiment measures. Those are based on surveys of households, and ours is trying to use or exploit the advances in machine learning techniques to be able to use computers to essentially read text like news articles and measure the sentiment in news. So it's a very different methodology than the standard sentiment measures that are out there.
Dan, the holy grail of anything like this is actually to be able to get useful signal information before other people have it, whether it's to anticipate market moves or to be ahead of the curve on hard data that then moves markets. Are you finding that these techniques that you're working on do give people information ahead of the curve?
Well, let me say first that economic forecasting is a really hard job. So there are not any statistical models out there that are really good at predicting the economy or especially financial markets way in advance, like a year in advance. But what we're trying to do is basically take the existing forecasting models that are based on hard data, like you said, and see if tracking the news sentiment can help predict or help track the current economy and help forecast the economy in the future. So I would say it's kind of like making a bad forecast somewhat better. And we find that our sentiment index does at least as well as consumer sentiment in terms of tracking the economy and helping with forecasts, and that actually all of them together produce the best forecast.
How well do these news sentiment measures hold up in the era of Trump, where papers and reporters and the media are still trying to wrap their head around the new president and how he communicates with the public and how to interpret his various comments?
Well, I would say what we've done is more of a historical analysis. We've gone back to using news articles going all the way back to 1980 from all of the major newspapers. And we're kind of exploring the technology of whether we can extract sentiment from those. Going forward, there's a lot of interest in these techniques for looking at social media posts and just other types of text that are out there in the economy. So, I think news articles are always going to be relevant, but there's more and more text out there to be analyzed that could potentially be useful for tracking the economy.